Let's see if it's live. Okay, we are live. Hey, everybody out there in TV land. Kenyatta Turner here, and it is Freedom Friday. It is New Year's Eve 2021, December 31st, and it's still Friday. So we're still doing a Freedom Friday, even though it's New Year's Eve. I've got a fun quote that we're going to talk about. I have a special guest that I'm going to bring on stage in just a moment. And if you saw the little banner, that you saw that Jeff Morris is here with me. This is going to be fun. I'll introduce you to him. And we're going to have a little bit of conversation, but we're also going to talk about the quote. So I'm going to bring him on right now, just in a second. But of course, if you're watching live, then in the comments, go ahead and give me a hashtag team live. Or if you're watching the replay, then give me a hashtag team replay. And I oftentimes am here by myself, just doing a monologue with you, talking about the Freedom Friday quote, giving a little training or little nuggets or updates or random banter. But every once in a while, I have someone who can join me. So if you are here with me right now, I honor you because it is New Year's Eve and you can be doing anything else other than sitting in front of your computer watching my live stream. So we are broadcasting on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube all at the same time. So remember, if you're on Facebook and you're going to put your comments in, then give StreamYard permission to show your name. That way I know who you are and I will bring your comments up. But I'm going to check a couple things over here because I always need to make sure that all systems are go. And I've got myself over here because sometimes I think I'm live and I'm not live. So I just want to make sure of that. So let's go ahead and bring my special guest to the stage and then we will talk about our Freedom Friday quote. So let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. And so let's remove this and bring him to the stage. Oh, but he's little. Let's make him bigger. There we go. Actually, let me do it like that. Okay. There. Cool. Now we're right here, front and center. Welcome, Jeff, to my Freedom Friday show.
Hey, everybody. Good to be with you, Kenyatta.
Yeah, I'm excited that you were here. We talk all the time on Zoom calls in some sort of fashion, but we're never like live where everyone's just involved in our conversation. And that's right. What it is right now. Because who knows who's going to see this? It's going to be on the interwebs forever. And I'm excited to have you here because every Friday, I basically have this conversation about a quote around freedom. And I'll bring that up here in a moment. But before I do that, I just want to introduce you to the audience. So this is Jeff Morris. He is a reflective thinker. He is a friend. He's like a brother to me. We're business partners. And he is the co-founder and the chief dream maker for DreamSmart Academy. We're going to get into more about what that's all about in a moment. But I want to let you know why he's here. Well, it's because as I go forward with these Freedom Fridays, I've decided that I want to start bringing guests more often. And I'm going to start with, and those of you who might be watching this who realize that you're part of this group of people I'm about to mention, you don't know this yet, but with the DreamSmart team, I want to start bringing them up one by one, introducing them to my network, letting you hear their stories and what they're about, what we ultimately are about, because you're going to be hearing a lot about us coming up in the near future. And you may have heard about what it is we do before, but not in the way that I'm going to share it with you in the upcoming weeks. So we're going to get started with Jeff Morris. So before we jump into the quote, Jeff, I'll give you a moment just to say hello to the people out there watching and share whatever you like before we jump in.
Well, Kenyatta, first, let me say thank you. And I'm honored to be the last guest, and I guess the first guest of your Freedom Friday show.
Yeah.
as we exit 2021 and enter 2022. Mm-hmm. And, being a former Marine, freedom is very important to me. I carry the Marine Corps flag and I carry the American flag as a ceremonial sergeant. I buried people and gave them families that flag, many different types of ceremonies. So freedom is something that is very near and dear to my heart. And I'm glad that I had the experience to serve in the United States military, especially as a Marine. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for your service, Jeff. And this is so great. I'm so glad to have you here for this conversation, because what we'll find is when we talk about freedom, one of the things and one of the reasons why I set this up with this quote, and I do a different quote every week, is because there's so many different ways to view the word freedom and so many interpretations. And I'm always fascinated by it, which is why, again, I started my business and it's called Freedom Empire Consulting. but why that's really important to me. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I know you got your family you could be hanging out with right now, but you came to hang out with me for a little bit on New Year's Eve, and I appreciate that. So let me bring up the quote. We're going to jump right into that, and then I'll talk for a little bit about it and what I posted about it when I posted early today, but then I want to get some of your thoughts on it as well. So let me see. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the thing for those of you out there who are watching, my company is called Freedom Empire Consulting. And to me, freedom truly is a state of mind. It can be a place and it can be a thing. But I believe also for me, it's about how you think about things and how you feel about yourself and the world around you, because I believe it can absolutely live up here. And for me, a freedom empire is a state of mind. It could be what it is you want for your family, for your business, for your career, for your lifestyle, having the freedom of thought, having the freedom of movement, having the freedom to make the decisions that you want for your life, having financial freedom, having freedom to move about the planet, without restriction, right? Those are all different ways to look at this word and the concept of it. And when I posted it earlier today, this is the quote that came to me, because every week a new quote just comes to me and I read it and I'm like, oh, this is the one that I want to share. So the quote is from Soledad O'Brien. Now, here's the thing. If you watch my Freedom Friday shows, that you know that I will tell you who the quote is by, but I won't tell you anything about that person. Why do I do that? Very specifically, I'm someone who practices like the Socratic method of teaching, right? Like I want you to go and look it up and find out on your own. Why? Is because if I just told you about the person, I'd only be telling you about them from my perspective. If you decided to actually do some research on the person, you're going to find things that I would never even have thought to share with you. So I don't want to limit you in your research to learn about someone new. So if you don't already know who Soledad O'Brien is, then I encourage you, those of you who are watching, to go to Google and look the person up. And then you'll find out about them what you're supposed to find out about them. So that's my little thing that I always do. And I do not tell you about the person that I got the quote from. I let you discover that on your own. So the quote is, I've learned that fear limits you and your vision. It serves as blinders to what may be just a few steps down the road for you. The journey is valuable, but believing in your talents, your abilities, and your self-worth can empower you to walk down an even brighter path, transforming fear into freedom. How great is that? So now this is a different context of freedom, right? What does she mean by this? So when I posted earlier today, and Jeff, I want to bring you into the conversation in just a moment, I posted about and this is what I usually post about freedom, is that as a noun, freedom, and I'm just reading from it over here, freedom is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. But that's just one interpretation. So the whole point of Freedom Friday is looking at new interpretations of that word. So I love this quote by Soledad O'Brien, as it is a stark reminder of the importance of self-awareness and the freedom it can create in your life. So I put, when a person understands who they are and why they have a better chance of identifying and then believing in their unique gifts, skills, talents, and abilities. I think that's really kind of what she's saying here, right? So I wrote, a feeling of empowerment and self-worth and self-esteem can expand from this state of behavioral awareness. But I also put that I think with that comes clarity, vision, excitement, and the desire for a life fulfilled, especially when you put importance on gaining those things. And that importance is greater than the fear we have, right? She said, transforming fear into freedom. So I think this quote is timely because right now, the whole world is reflecting on themselves. They're reflecting on their businesses, their life, their careers, the future of all of those things, because now we're at the end of a year. And this is the time where typically everyone looks back and goes, what happened last year? And what do I want this year, right? So embrace the journey. My encouragement is to you, like, embrace that journey, embrace that self-awareness. And I think that right as I looked at this quote, I was thinking about the road ahead for so many people right now, as we are at the end of this year and everyone does their thing about next year and their resolutions or their intentions or commitments, that this is a time for that reflection. But if you don't value your own self and your self-worth and your self-awareness, and you aren't aware of your talents, skills, and abilities, then I believe that fear will hold you back from transforming. But when you have that, that's when freedom comes. That's when there are no limits. That's where literally you can become and do whatever it is that you want. So those are just some of my initial thoughts. Like when I read this quote, and I wrote out my little post that I always do every Friday, but that's where my mind was when I saw this. And Jeff, you're here, so I want to share this conversation with you and kind of get some of your thoughts and feelings about Soledad's quote and what it means to you.
Well, thanks, Kenyatta. Well, that was very deep. I mean, we can really hang up the mic and go home now, right? We don't really have to do too much discussion. But I've shared before, and in the DreamSmart economy, we talk about 4 dream stealers. The first one being fear, right? There's a science to fear. I've read many books on the science of fear, how to deconstruct what fear does in our life, right? Fear, self-sabotaging behavior, false beliefs, and damaging emotions all tie into the concept of what limits you to succeed, your limits to succeed, right? When I think of freedom, it's about a lack of movement, right? A lack of access, or think about financial freedom. Like you don't have the ability to do what you want, mental freedom. You can't function at your highest use. Whenever we think of freedom, we think of a lack of access to something or it limits movement. Right. So in this context, I love what she says here, right? Blindness to what may be just a few steps down the road for you. Fear can keep us. Well, let me just tell you a really quick conversation about my son.
Please.
My son was at the Air Force Academy, and he was faced with some very difficult decisions. And most people would have probably quit given some of the circumstances that had come upon him. Okay. And he called and said he wanted to quit. And I said, hey, well, first you can quit, but then where you going to live? Because you can't come here. Right. So then I said, hey man, fear is around every corner. Fear is, you can't ever get rid of fear, right? Courage is just being able to move forward in spite of the fear that you face. So I had him call his grandfather. And his grandfather said, son, don't let fear get in the way of your destiny.
There you go.
It was impactful. It made a difference for my son. And today he's a graduate and he's a second lieutenant. But we're all standing at that precipice at some point, right?
Right.
Of fear and go, what do I do now? Do I press forward and, take a few steps down the road and wait for the next step to be illuminated? Or do I stand back, right? And just live a life of frustration, doubt, worry, insecurity, and all things that fear puts you into a place of. So great quote by Soledad. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I love that. And thank you for sharing that story, because I think that's a great, testimonial to, again, like you said, we all get to that point at some point, right? And then what happens when we get there? What is the decision that we're going to make? So love that quote by her. And again, those of you who are watching, every Friday, there's a new one. And I encourage you to put in the comments below, whenever you're watching this, put in the chat, what are your thoughts about that quote? Is there anything that stuck with you? Because again, this is about challenging you to think differently about a word that you hear all the time. What is it? What could it mean? What does it mean for you? Do you find yourself in a situation where you're looking for freedom by understanding your own skills, talents, gifts, and abilities? And now that I posed you with that question, you may be wondering now, what are my unique gifts, skills, talents, and abilities? You might not know, but maybe no one's posed that question to you before, right? At least in the way that we have right now. So we work in the space of behavior, and we're going to talk about that next, which leads to some of the answers to those questions. I know we free people with access to this information. I just got done spending 4 hours teaching a behavioral vision boot camp to some women who definitely were freed in the idea of learning about themselves at their core and why they do what they do. And now they can base their vision for their life around that, and then set the goals that they need to be in alignment with that vision, all behaviorally based. Freedom for sure. The conversations we had in the feedback proves that. So again, what are you doing and thinking about to create that freedom in your own life? That's what I encourage you to do, because it's going to be different for everyone. So thank you for that. So Jeff, I want to jump into the conversation and learn a little bit more about you. Now I have you here as my guest, because people don't know you. So,
and I don't like to talk about myself either.
I know you don't. So, but that's what we need to do. We need to talk a little bit about you, DreamSmart Academy. And I want you to share a little bit about, why you got involved in the work that you do, and then where DreamSmart Academy came into that. And then we'll jump into how I work with you in that. But I want you to tell a little bit about your story and how this came to be.
Well, I think the place that makes the most sense to start will be when I was carjacked at the age of 22. Right, I was trapped in a phone booth, and I was a young Marine. I was a young Marine sniper at the time, and I was trapped in a phone booth, and some guys wanted to take my life, and I was able to talk my way out of the phone booth, run away. I got shot. I did 15, 18 months of rehab, of physical rehab in the hospital. And I tell people the most difficult part of my journey was not the physical rehab, because I didn't have any feeling in my hand for many, many, many different months, for many months. The most difficult part of my rehab was my emotional rehab, right? Because you have to deal with things like fear, right? Self-doubt, worry, anxiety, all the things that come along with trauma.
Right.
So usually where there's fear, there's some trauma. There's something that wants to limit you from pushing yourself to the edge. As one of my mentors, Larry Johnson, taught us, my high school football coach.
Okay.
All Ohio State Buckeye fans out there, you know who Larry Johnson is. He talks about pushing it to the edge, taking it to the limits. But when you have fear, it's like having your foot on the gas pedal and the brake at the same time, and you just spin tires. So it really, for me, it was a decision that I had to make. Don't want to say trapped in this jail of fear and doubt and worry, security, or can I move forward with my life? Because around every corner, I could see the people that shot me. Right around every corner, there was someone that was going to attack me, and along came the nightmares and the trauma that comes along with all that. So, if there are people out there suffering from this mental, what's the word I'm looking for, Kenyatta?
PTSD,
PTSD is one
from a traumatic experience that happened.
Traumatic experiences. There's a lot of that, right? And so we see that, especially as we start to work with some of the people that we're working with,
right?
And when you're talking about freedom, but
and mental health issues can come from
mental
that.
health. That's what I was looking for. People who have mental health issues, right? I can understand, because I have PTSD. And when you look at me, I'm not the face of PTSD, or someone you would think would have PTSD, but I do have it, right? At the age of 30, my little brother was shot and murdered in Washington, D.C. And then in my early 40s, I had to file for bankruptcy, divorce, and all those things. And we came to a point of, how do I reinvent myself, and what can I do with my gifts, talents, and abilities? Right. From there, I met Dr. Greg and Miss Selene Kama, who was the CEO, chairman of the board for Jack in the Box for many, many years. Said, Jeff, you're a great educator, teacher, mentor, and coach. I think I've coached, 150, 200 teams. I don't know how many teams I've coached over the years, but one thing I can do is coach, train, and mentor. I can do that for sure. That's what we started doing.
Yeah.
We started with SpendSmart, which was a financial literacy-based company. And we were one of the first organizations, Kenyatta, to inject the idea of behavioral finance into financial literacy, because financial literacy is not just about the mechanics of spend less, right, and save more. It's more about, okay, what's your financial temperament? What's your money story? What's your relationship with money? Those are the dynamics. And the same thing we find with behavior. When we're trying to help people push to their limits, right, we have to understand first what their behavioral identity is. Because from their behavioral identity, we can really begin to understand how they're wired, why they're wired, and how they're going to show up, and then help them really answer the question, and what's my value? What's my purpose in this life? And then what are my gifts, talents, and abilities? And then help them walk in their greatness. And that's the essence of what DreamSmart Academy is. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
Right. So fantastic things coming in 2022. For the last 3 years, it's been a culmination of understanding people. So I'll stop it there, but that's kind of, my story in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. And thank you for sharing that and giving a little bit of the backstory and being transparent, and sharing a little bit about your journey, because it shapes who we are, and when you talk about having the traumatic things happen that shape you, that we have to fight our way out of, part of what we do is to help people have an understanding of themselves to help them do that. For instance, you are a reflective thinker. I'm an influencer. We are two different people, right? Two
Right.
different stories, but that's who you've always been. I can imagine, like, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about how you've always been that reflective thinker. And I think about that situation you just mentioned that happened and how much you probably were in your head about that scenario, right?
Right.
About recovering from that and what that meant and all the different things, because when you think something about something, you're going deep, and it's you're thinking about it in all different ways and angles that not everybody else is thinking about, because that's your superpower though, right?
Right.
But again, we all have the kryptonite that comes along with that. There was probably
Right.
times where you had to be like, okay, enough.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
Let some of that go. Okay. And
Mhm.
also the idea that there's some things that we can't change as well, right? So making
Absolutely.
the decision, okay, I've processed that, I'm done processing that, I need to move forward,
Sure.
as well. Whereas me, the influencer style, I'm going to think about it, but probably not that long. Because I'm going to be like, what's next? But
Right.
again, the idea that we help people understand themselves at the level at which they're not used to being able to
Mhm.
quantify or qualify, to be able to see it on paper in that way and
Right.
explain, this is why Jeff is the way he is. This is why I'm so happy that you're my business partner, because you are the reflective thinker. You will manage and take care of things at the level of detail and depth that I'm not going, for sure. And then you let me do what I need to do, over here. So talk briefly for a minute about what we are working on with our
Mm.
API, and how we
Mhm.
are not only practitioners, we are architects,
Mm.
of this information, and some of the cool things that we're working on, where we can give people access to this in a way they haven't had before.
Well, let's do this to be fair. Before we talk about what we're up to, let's talk about some of the people on our team.
Yeah.
A Dr. Greg Spencer,
Mhm.
right? Dr. Greg Spencer is an initiator, right? Dr. Greg Spencer, Terry Hawkins, our
Mhm.
COO, Ted McLyman,
All
initiators, all
initiators.
initiators, Frank Trump,
Right.
initiators,
Another
all of these
initiator.
fast-paced plan pioneers, and
Mhm.
we call them, right, when we can break the glass and tell them to go. We don't call them before that because they're already gone, right? Being initiators, right? But they have their own lanes that they're running in. They're instrumental to our everyday value. A person like Clayton Hoyle
Yep.
is extremely valuable to the DreamSmart Academy as we start helping people navigate their careers based on our behavioral insights.
Yes.
Right? Think about some of our friends and our partners, people we get to rub elbows with. Lee Ellis from Leading with Honor and Humanity, the
Absolutely.
gentleman who wrote the book Leadership DNA. Right now,
Love
we're
it.
going to reimagine that book in 2022 to give it the
Mhm.
DreamSmart feel, but the science is still going to be the science, but it's going to have
Oh,
our stories,
this
right?
book right
Hey, Lee
here.
and Hugh, LaToya
We
and
love
Hugh.
this book.
Think
Mhm.
about our buddies Leon Morales, Nikki
Right.
Evans, and all the people that have helped us get from a point where we not only can understand those behavioral assessments, right, but we can architect them now
Right.
because we can leverage the science and make them, give them the dream smart look and feel. And that's what we're doing with everything from our entrepreneur
Mhm.
report to our communications. We call it quadratic communications, our dream team report,
Love it.
right? Our relationship enhancement tool. Here's one thing we
Mhm.
know, Kenyatta, where two or more people are gathered, there's gonna be some drama.
Mhm. There's gonna
Usually because there's a misalignment either in communication style
Right.
or behavioral misalignment, behavioral type.
Right.
And the sooner you can discover that, the sooner you can help the two parties understand if they flex, they can continue on the same road. They both feel valued, supported. They might not agree 100%, but they can still get the job done.
They can get the job done because we
Right.
help bridge the gap so they can see each other's perspective.
That's
And like
right.
we like to say, it's not personal, it's just science,
It's
people.
just science, right?
You
Where we
know,
find
science.
friction, we find difference. And
Mhm.
when we and the question is, do we reject the difference? Do we tolerate it or do we celebrate it?
Right.
And in our ecosystem, we talk about celebrating the differences, aligning them, staying aligned in mission and vision, because that's important, but celebrating the versatile, the behavioral diversity of our team. Right.
Absolutely. Like
So
that's what I do with you. I celebrate the reflective thinker.
right.
The planned, fast-paced, reflective thinker that you are. I'm like, yes, yes. I was talking about you
Yes.
earlier today when I was training. I'm
Right.
always celebrating that because again, those are the differences that make us all full. It fills us
Yes.
all up because we have, not one of us can do everything, right? So
Right.
instead of, being upset by the fact that you can't do everything, no, go find and work someone who can do what you're not good at.
Go find somebody that can do what you're not good at, because
That's it.
every superhero needs somebody to help them,
They don't do it
right?
alone.
Every Superman, every person needs somebody to help them.
What did Dr. Greg say once? He said that Superman, I don't remember what Superman it was, but someone had to put his kryptonite in a lead box for him or something.
Batman had to help Superman. That's right.
Yeah, and he's like Superman, but he even still
Right.
need help.
Right. When we talk about the concept of superheroes, every superhero has some trauma that, propelled them forward to want to be the person that they are.
Right.
No superhero is without trauma.
No, they all have trauma. Usually they got a lot of trauma.
Usually they got some trauma.
It seems like they got more than the average person has, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which probably drives them to want to do more and do better, to contribute.
Right.
I think that's really what it comes. It's like they come from these places where they want to do better, provide a better opportunity for others. So maybe they can avoid the trauma that they went through. Right. And that's like the power of, what we do and the people we try to surround ourselves with. We all have our stuff. We all have our things that we've experienced in many traumatic situations. But isn't that part of what drives us to work so hard to help other people? To try to create a better experience for them in their lives, if we can impact that at all.
We're all healing ourselves from the inside out as we help others. That's part of the reason I do what I do, right? Every time I help somebody, every time we get a phone call saying, man, you really gave me permission to be me. Or I've been running for myself my whole life, and you gave me a permission to be a community builder. Yeah. Like, how empowering is that?
Love it.
And before we leave, Kenyatta, we asked this question as we were planning our Behavioral Superpowers Month. That's going to be attached to Mental Health Month in May.
Yep.
And then World Behavioral and Mental Health. What is it? World Mental Health Day in October.
October 10th.
Here's the question I posed to everybody was, now that we all know the importance of behavioral identity, we know what it does for us, and we know what it's done for our clients. Imagine if 1 million people could find out and understand their behavioral identity, understand what their value was, their self-worth was, right? What their purpose could be based on gifts, talents, and abilities that we're going to help them, uncover, and then we can help them walk in their greatness. Imagine how different would the world be if just 1 million people understood that. Right? Could be inclusive of other people's differences, could be diverse in their thought and welcome other cultures.
Right.
So we're really
accepting of themselves.
Be accepting of
themselves too. It's huge.
Absolutely. So
that's what we're gonna do.
There's a lot of great things going on. So I'm just glad to be on the journey with you, Kenyatta, and Dr. Greg, Terry, Ted, Clayton, Frank, and everybody in our ecosystem, Lee Hughes,
Dr. Barbara Duncan,
Dr. B, and all of our trainees. We got to think about too, all the coaches that have come to Pastor Sean Mitchell, who just wrote an Amazon four category bestseller, all part of our ecosystem. So
congratulations, Dr. Sean, and like I said, all the coaches. We have 12 accredited behavioral superpowers coaches out there. We have 4 more that are about to graduate, 4 more about to graduate, and excited about that because, again, we can't do this alone, people. So those of you out there listening and you're thinking, what are they talking about? Behavioral superpowers, and how do I find out mine and all this? Well, you know how to reach me. You can just put my information or put in the chat or whatever. Jeff Morris, follow him, tag him, send him a message, as well. You can find him at Jeff Morris. He's on LinkedIn. You might be able to find him on LinkedIn. You might want to send him an email, though. He'll get that probably sooner. Jeff, what's your email?
It's my name, Jeff Morris at the one word DreamSmartAcademy.com. But I'm gonna be better on LinkedIn. I keep telling you, I'm gonna be on LinkedIn this year and Facebook. I'm gonna be better at that this year.
I believe him. Wink, wink. That he's gonna do that. He's not the person who's gonna be on social media like I am, but he's gonna get there eventually. But again, that's not his happy place, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, So for him to come out of his comfort zone to be more active on social media, that would be going against the grain, of who he is as the reserved reflective thinker, right? But that's the thing. So, but you'll see him out there because we're going to be out there a lot because as we plan some of the things we have coming up in 2020, social media is going to play a big part in
Absolutely.
spreading our message in the way that we need to have that done. So, I'm just doing my little part here, just bringing you and the team on. I'll be bringing you guys on one by one and collectively, because I do have this platform here on Fridays to talk about all kinds of crazy things. But again, I want to have some guests come on and join me. So I appreciate you taking the time again on New Year's Eve away from your family to come and have this conversation. It's a very powerful conversation. And like I've been telling people, look, everyone's talking about 2022. It's just tomorrow.
Right.
So what is going to be truly different? I'm speaking to you out there listening, as you think about the excitement that comes around the new year, and there is excitement there. But I always want to remind everyone, look, whatever it is you're waiting till tomorrow to do, you could probably do today. So 2020 is still a flip of the calendar, but without your compelling vision about what you really want for your life, you have to then go, well, what's really going to be different for me just because it's a new year? Because 2/3 of people who set New Year's resolutions are done with them like in the third week of January.
Right.
Why is that? Well, they probably need to ask themselves why they're setting those New Year's resolutions. And really, what are they really, what is it compelling for you? Is it a commitment? Is it an intention? Is it a resolution? But again, it's still just a new day. So how do you live in the moment of what's happening right now and make this the most amazing time today? And then tomorrow, just do the same thing, right?
Today is the day.
Today is the day. Today is the day. Because I had some people, even my boot camp, they're like, you're going to do that on New Year's Eve? Like, yes, why wouldn't I? It's a great day. And the women who showed up today are like, this was a perfect day to do that, right? Because again, today is the day. So I honor you, Jeff, for being here today and making sure today was the day to share your message, because there's people out there who need to hear what you shared, today. And you guys, tomorrow, and we'll wrap up with this. Hang on one second, Jeff. Before you leave, don't leave the room or the green room or whatever. But before I wrap up, we'll be here next Friday, right, with another Freedom Friday quote. Who knows who my guest will be then? Stay tuned. But if you want to learn about coffee enemas, then listen to the Healthy Grocer radio show tomorrow. So let me put this little banner up here, because I'm going to totally shift gears and put this up here. Because, so for some of you who don't know, I'm the host of a show called the Healthy Grocer radio show. It's an actual radio show. We are on 1510 AM, 105.3 FM in Arizona. But if you're not in Arizona, you can go to moneyradio1510.com and listen to the live stream of the radio show. But what's happening that I'm excited about, and you can see the little banner down here says every Saturday, 11 to 12, Arizona time, you can listen to the show. So, but what we started doing is streaming the show into Clubhouse. So you can follow me on @Kenyatta Turner Clubhouse, and there is a club called the Healthy Grocer Radio Show. If you listen in the Clubhouse room, then the expert speaker that I'm going to be speaking to tomorrow about coffee enemas will also be in that room. So after the show is over, you can ask questions to the actual speaker that I'm interviewing. Now, I am not the expert on coffee enemas. Okay. I don't know anything about them. I'm simply the host. Okay.
Right.
So the Healthy Grocer radio show is about all things naturopathic medicine, holistic healing, mind, body, spirit. We talk from things about coffee enemas to boosting your immune system, to eating healthy foods that can help reduce, reverse, or prevent diabetes. We talk about naturopathic medicine and vitamins and all these different things, right? And I'm the expert on none of those. Okay. I just interview the people who are the experts. So tomorrow, if you want to listen in, it's going to be Dr. John St. Rose, who's a naturopathic physician here in Arizona. And he's going to be speaking about the benefits of coffee enemas. So that is what, if you want to learn about that on the first day of January, after everyone parties tonight and eats a whole bunch of food and drinks a whole bunch of stuff they shouldn't be drinking and all that, and you're feeling all fat and happy tomorrow, you might want to listen in about how to detox, because that's what it's about. It's about detoxing your body, right? So, but apparently you can use coffee to do that. So we're going to learn about that.
Okay.
Very exciting. Good. All right. So thank you so much, everyone out there listening. I appreciate you. Obviously drop something in the chat, #TeamLive or #TeamReplay. Jeff, thank you so much for being here again. I appreciate you. We'll hear more from you soon on the show. And then, of course, we're going to talk anyway. And all of you out there, have a safe and happy new year. I will see you next week. And remember, #behavior matters. Have fun out there. Bye, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Let me hit in this broadcast. And Jeff, you stay right there. Let's see if I do this right.